Hey, what's up? Welcome back. This is episode 4 and the pups have just turned 5 months old, and I'm going to talk about the styles of play and the games that I introduced to puppies up until this point. So that's going to include things like the standard game of fetch, deloading into toys, dragons, basic possession games with specific grips, and some search games. I'm going to talk about what each of these are and why I introduced them, and show some footage of the boys learning these. So we'll start off with fetch. Now, there's a lot of different names for fetch. You can call it retrieves, chase and catch, just normal play. Call it whatever you want, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to refer to it just as fetch. And my expectation and criteria for the game of fetch is that the handler throws the object, the dog chases that object, the dog brings it back to the handler, the dog cooperatively gives the ball to the handler when directed, then rinse and repeat. Throw, retrieve, cooperative handover. But what you'll see here is that he does everything well, but actually gives it up very easily and starts to play with me. So I pick up the ball and smoothly redirect him to playing with the ball rather than biting and licking my face and hands. On the next rep, you'll see he does pretty much the same thing, and I can see he's losing interest in the ball. So in this case, given the circumstances of this session, I make the toy a little more attractive to him by bringing a little extra prey movements into the ball. I lower it to the ground so he can pounce on it if he wants, and when he shows enough desire, I let him win it, but in a way that he feels he stole it from me.
Nice.
From there, my goal is to get him to do one last retrieve, and then when he brings it back, I give him the opportunity to have more interaction and affection from me. The important thing here is that after he drops the ball, I continue to hold it. Over time, they begin to realize the ball is needed as part of this interaction with me during the game and can help bring a little more value to it. Eventually, they hold the ball during these moments rather than me. So although I'm teaching the basic game of fetch, these moments are still important, and I make sure I give time for that. Cooperation is a huge component of this game, which is one of the reasons I like to start puppies with this as soon as I get them. Because for me, in the way that I like to train, it's really important to develop a good relationship with the puppies. And a lot of that comes from clear communication and cooperation from both parties, and showing them that I can be aware and understand what they're trying to communicate with me and then act on that. They're also learning the important skill of giving something up in order to get something that they want, which pays dividends later. But something to note is the overarching sort of reason I use this game is because there's no conflict with it, but it gives me an opportunity to show the dogs that I can give them an outlet, I can meet their needs, I can be fun. Because up until this point, depending how much play the breeder has done with them, all of their play needs and everything like that has come from their litter mates. And I'm just some random human over here. I need to show them that me as a human who've just taken you away and put you in a new location, I need to show them that I can provide fun, I can meet their needs, I can give them an outlet and do all these things that their litter mates used to do. And this is just the first way that I do that. From there, it's up to me to start recognizing the individual needs of the pups and then start forming ideas on how I'm going to help satiate and give them outlets for those needs and those desires, because no doubtedly there's going to be this pent-up energy at different stages with these pups, and I need to give them a way to express that safely and ideally in a way that's going to benefit us both later down the track. So I use a particular toy. It's this triangular sort of prism toy that helps me to do that with these guys. So what I use it for is to help satisfy their biological need to bite things, and in some dogs the desire to possess something. And the reason I choose this shape toy is because it teaches the pups to open their mouth properly while simultaneously allowing them to achieve a full grip using their back teeth. So this simulates the style of biting they'll be doing later when they're biting decoys in suits and sleeves. While he's biting the toy, I give it a few small tugs here and there. I also lift him up by the collar or scruff of his neck. He sinks even harder into the toy. This is exactly what we want. But what's important to note is that the dog isn't in a full-on possession game with me. They don't feel like I'm really stealing the toy. You know, we're not fighting for this toy. All of my body language, all of my movements and physical contact with him communicates that I'm supporting him. I want him to have it, and to have it, I need him to hold it in a specific way. So the little tugs of the toy help to bring in a little bit of prey and to keep the toy alive, so to speak, which can reduce the potential for chewiness or laziness. As for the pulling the scruff up, for these guys, this helps relax them while also making sure they're holding the toy firmly enough. And when it comes to under the chin and stroking their head, this is quite a relaxing thing for them and encourages a state of calmness and can quite often put them in a bit of a zen state while doing this. All these things become part of the bite work we do later, and some will turn into very specific cues we use to induce a calm mental state while biting a decoy. But it all starts while they're young and in play, where the stakes are lower and there's no conflict. This style of play was done as much as necessary to help them be at ease in their mind and be content enough to actually rest and sleep, because it's really important that puppies actually get enough rest and sleep, but never to the detriment of other sessions, never to the level where their interest in a decoy is reduced. Once they're a little older, typically just before they start teething, I start teaching them how to pull into a harness to develop a bit more persistence and commitment to pushing through, or in this case, pulling through pressure in order to achieve the thing that you want. So the way I do this by using a chuck it cube, a harness, and a leash. The reason I use the cube is because no matter how it lands, there's always an edge presented for the dog to bite, and much like the triangular prism toy, it encourages them to open up their mouth fully and grip it as deep as possible. If they don't bite it properly, they just struggle to hold it, I can flick it out of their mouth and then it bounces away, or I'll kick it away and we start again. That's pretty much the whole game. It's often called kick fetch for that reason. But once again, this is a bit of a supportive game where I'm on his team. And despite being on his team, sometimes he'll bite me instead of the toy, simply because I'm closer and his desire to bite something outweighs his impulse control. He's a puppy after all. But it's no big issue. At this time, it's not with any malicious intent, so I just say he's no reward marker and redirect him straight back to the game and we continue. This was only his second session with the cube, so he was still learning what to do, the rules and expectations, so that disappeared pretty quickly. The most important thing in this game is to make sure that he succeeds and doesn't give up. The way in which I do that is by adjusting three things: how much, how long, and how many. How much resistance I put through the leash, how long I keep that resistance on for, and how many reps actually have resistance in them. On top of those three things, I also have to consider the timing of the release of pressure, because that's what's going to dictate what you see more of. And what I want to see is a slow, continuous effort to pull forward through the pressure until it's released. I don't want to see any jerking motion. I don't want to see any hitting the leash and spinning. I don't want to see them turning around to look at me. Just a smooth, consistent pull forward through that pressure. It's up to me to gauge where the dog's at and how much they're actually going to be able to resist, depending on fatigue, their mental state, distractions, competing motivators, things like that. But it's really important to never have more resistance than what the dog's willing to pull through. The next game I introduce is more of a competitive game where we're actually on opposing teams rather than more of a supportive role like some of the other games. This can sometimes bring a level of conflict, but as with all our games, it's really important to still have a level of cooperation and adhering to the rules and the boundaries to keep things safe. It's also super important to be really clear with your communication in terms of things like your windows of opportunity and your markers, the rules and the boundaries, as well as your body language and presentations of the toy and things like that. So this game requires me to get the ball and maintain possession, and then the same thing for him. So we're both competing for this thing and to maintain possession. Kick off. Nice. So the first thing I do is open my window for play, give the marker and throw the ball. The reason I throw the ball is because he's more familiar with chasing games, so starting like this helps to develop the play window, but it also gives him the opportunity to start with possession before I begin to try to take it, because this is the beginning of this game. I'm pretty light with the tugs as he's learning this game and still trying to figure out how to best grip this type of ball. But this dog is already quite possessive, so what's more important is slowly bringing up the competitiveness, but without the conflict, and then maintaining cooperation. So I make sure he also wins, and we also still celebrate together, and we toggle the arousal levels throughout the game. All of the things we've done previously in the games that had more supportive roles. You'll see in a moment, I start to use strategies and tactics to win, just like the dogs do. Their strategy might be physical strength, and their tactic could be to thrash their head until I lose my grip. But my strategy is to use competing motivators that attract him. Hey look, there's grass. Oh, you fell for it. Safe to say it worked. Once you do this enough times, they'll no longer fall for these tactics, and you'll develop a dog that will choose to continue to engage with you despite everything it knows is happening or is present around them. He's a good boy. Some people prefer for their dogs to be so engaged with them that they never actually look and see what else is around. But my preference is to have the dog fully aware of everything else that's around, but choose to stay engaged with me. Up next, we've got the tube tug toy, which is used for more competitive and possessive games as well. But this one's going to be a higher intensity, and this is also going to require a bit more of a specific grip. Kick off. Oh, you missed. Nice. Oh, good boy. Nice. Attaboy. Oh no. We want the dogs to bite this toy as deep as possible, but we also want them to crush down on it because it is a soft toy, and then eventually we work towards harder toys. But because the pups are teething at the moment, I'm not so much focusing on their grip on the toy, but just the fact that they're targeting the toy. Nice, good boy. As well as their possessiveness, the desire to push forward as opposed to pull. Also learning when it's appropriate to regrip if it's necessary, and then having some quicker wins. I also take these opportunities during teething to work on the cooperation aspect of bringing the toy back to me after they win and then celebrating together. So as the games get more intense post-teething and more possessive and more competitive, they already understand and have practiced the toggling of arousal and switching between competitive and supportive aspects within the same game. The last type of play that I introduce is a search game, where it's very similar to fetch, but they just can't see where the ball lands. The idea is that they need to use their nose to find the ball, and this then helps with things like area searching later on. And for now, we start in grass that's just long enough that they can't see the ball straight away. But in the end, they'd be able to find one particular stick in a pile of sticks or one ball in a pit of balls. So I often use areas like long grass or bushes or gardens that increase in size gradually. And then the distance between me and the designated search area increases as well. The height of the search area can change. They may need to find a toy on a pile of shelves, among other things. There can be obstacles that they need to navigate between us and the search area. There's so many possibilities, but right now it's just the introduction, and the purpose of these search games is to develop their hunt drive so that their future handlers and units can then choose if they want to go down the path of detection. The foundation's already set and they can get started straight away. So they're the 6 types of play and games that I introduce to pups up until they're about 6 months old. Each one has their own goals and boundaries and rules, and they need to be developed and communicated very clearly to the dog, but what each of those are will depend on you and your dog and your goals. Something that's important to note is that although I introduce these games in particular ways and with particular toys, in the end they're going to be able to play with any object that I say, hey, this is what we're playing with today. Because what's important is not the actual object itself, but the interaction and the game with me. So for me and the way that I train with the dogs, the way that I live with them, the breeds and what I'm developing them for, all of these games have a purpose and have a place in the toolkit. I don't believe everyone needs to teach their dogs all of these games, but I also believe that some people would benefit from teaching more than just these games and different variations as well. So if you enjoyed today's episode, let us know, consider subscribing, hit like, share it with a friend, and until next time, see you later.